Good evening. This is Greg Heffernan. I'm the Vice President of Academic Affairs for Residence Medical, and we have a nice webinar for you this evening. We want to kind of introduce you to us and also the search nationally for residency. Just to give you a little background about Residence Medical, we've been around for almost 28 years, and the area that we specialize in is preparing candidates for residency. And it runs in all sorts of different services. And it's not just clinical. We do interview prep like some of the other organizations, but we also set up research, scholarly opportunities, which we find extremely valuable. And in fact, many of our candidates who've done research often end up going into residency and helping run some of the research projects for residents and faculty and other GME programs. Aside from clinical, academic, we have didactics programs that specifically help candidates for residency and to go into residency. And we've been doing it for a number of decades, and we're kind of unique because we follow our candidates. Once they go into residency, we don't forget about them. We actually follow up with them. And we want to make sure that they're excelling in that program, that they're doing well. And we like to hear that they become chief resident, or they become resident of the month or resident of the year. And part of that is because we also set up residencies. I have a team of assistant physicians, faculty, teaching faculty, and deans that help set up some of the best new residency programs nationally. And because we do that, we want to set up really nice GME programs, and we want residents who go into those to be well prepared. And what we're going to talk about this evening are some of the statistics and some of the challenges of getting into residency, but also some of the qualities that the program directors themselves are looking for in a resident. And those qualities, whether you're a US grad, DO, or an IMG, are the same. What they require from you as a resident is more than just, I'm there to do my PGY 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 and finish and go into fellowship if I want. But it's also to know the culture and the support that those program directors need. And I think if you keep that in mind, wherever you are in trying to get into residency, you will eventually get there. And we're here tonight to also give you hope if you've had trouble not getting in. With that said, I can give you a little bit some of the stats, but I'll bring those up a little bit later as well. Just so you know, this year there were somewhere around 18,200 IMGs applying for residency this year, and that was up about 2,000 this year. But in terms of matching, only about 500 more IMGs matched this year than last year in that statistic. So somewhere around 7,500 matched in. Usually each year it's somewhere around 6,800, 7,000 IMGs match into the residencies. But what we noticed that about 500 more got in this year, so we're at about 7,500. But there were 2,200 or so additional IMG applicants in that scenario. The total was about 48,700 if you looked at the NRNP websites. Of that, 20,000 were US, applicants. Another 1,900 were graduates of US schools who haven't gotten in yet. They're still trying. Another 7,300 for DO schools. And one of the things that you'll hear me mention maybe even later this evening is about 3,200 or so IMGs had no rank list at all. That means they had no interviews. They probably spent significant money trying to get in to get interviews, but their results were unfortunately not successful in terms of getting an interview. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. With that said, I want to introduce you to Dr. Salabami, who is one of our candidates who did go into residency this year. He's been doing significant research, which we find extremely valuable in a program on the East Coast. And I will tell you this, the program director for whom he was working under was filled with accolades for you, Dr. Salabami. And we talked about this before. But anyhow, it was his delight to have him match into a prelim in general surgery and also anesthesiology for categorical, which Dr. Salabami did. So Dr. Salabami, welcome. And maybe you can give us a little bit of background about yourself, and we'll talk a few questions about the struggles of getting into GME programs.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Dr. Heffernan. So I'll talk briefly about myself. I'm from India, but I did my medical school in Central America, Panama, and I graduated in 2015. And by the time I finished all my boards and applied, it was already 2017. So I was basically getting some US clinical experience during that 1.5 year. And I also have a attempt on my step to CK. So, but still, I didn't want to give up my goal to get into residency. So I applied in 2017 for the match, and I had 0 interviews, even though I had worked under multiple physicians in the US for an year. So once that match was over, I realized maybe I need to gain some more skills somewhere where I can show I can be better than other residents, other applicants, if I want to get into residency. And also know I need to get a lot of contacts. So I was thinking what to do, if I should apply again, but then I did not want to lose hope. So I applied for Masters in Public Health because I wanted to stay in the country and also pursue residency. So while doing that, I came into touch with Resident Medical, and they told me how they help students and how they provide them with opportunities and keep them in a place where I'll be able to work closely with program directors or program coordinators and multiple attendings, and which will help me be in the zone where I can prove myself and get interviews, mainly because I had 0 interviews before that, and I thought I would never get an interview either. So once I got in touch with them and I finished my public health school, they gave me the opportunity to work where I matched for 1 year. So in the East Coast, I worked under the program director directly for 1 year, and my MPH and also whatever I learned from the tips Resident Medical gave me, I just followed them and tried to be confident throughout the way and try to show that I am capable of being a resident and I can deal with everything they throw at me. So that's what I tried to do. I worked very hard last 1 year, and I try to meet with as many people and attendings in the hospital too, so everyone knows me and knows that I can do anything that they can throw at me. So I think that's what I tried to do the last 1 year, and so somehow I matched in the same program, which I was very thankful for. But the thing is, I was able to be in that place where I can get matched because Resident Medical, they gave me, yeah.
I had a question. You had extensive publication before you started with this particular program. Is that correct, with your MPH and the research?
Yeah, I had a few. Mm-hmm.
And so using that experience helped you being able to kind of deliver some really good research projects for this particular program. And because my understanding was the scholarly activity, and all of those of you who are listening, scholarly activity is a requirement for every residency program, whether it's clinic-based, family medicine, psychiatry, internal medicine, general surgery. So there must be scholarly research going on. And if you can use your experience in that, or if you need experience in that, because residence medical is one of the few organizations that helps create those opportunities for candidates. Dr. Salabami is a good example of somebody who really excelled in the program, and they were so impressed with your work, they were able to kind of mentor you and bring you in. Whereas what you were sharing with is your scores, where you had some issue with an attempt on CK, the filters are blocking you out in a lot of the applications, and by spending time in this program and letting them see you, getting your foot in the door really made a big difference. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. That's what I was trying to convey. Yeah.
Yeah. So and some of your experience there working with other researchers and program director, other residents, really helped kind of endear you to the program.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we mentioned that you also matched into anesthesiology. Is that program also affiliated with where you are currently matching
Yes.
in?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Match into a categorical program for anesthesiology. Mm-hmm.
So in other words, by being able to make an affiliation with one specialty or one program and get into residency, it actually helps open doors into other areas as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was trying to be in contact with as many people as possible in the hospital, and in the end, my goal was to either get into a paying fellowship. So I thought anesthesiology will be a good way, and being in touch with everyone got me an interview, and then they liked me. So
right. We find this a lot. A lot of the program directors give us feedback that they really prefer spending time with a lot of candidates. Your time with this particular program is certainly much more extensive than a 40-minute interview or 10-minute or 30-minute interview by virtual Zoom, which is what most of the interviews were this year. And in fact, most of the program directors that we heard from nationally said that the US grads alone, their applications were up 20% across the United States. So, which made it even more challenging. But Dr. Salabami, now was your interview done virtually or in person or both?
it virtually. Like every other interview, I think no one had a in-person interview this year. Mine was virtual too.
Yes. Even people who are at those on-site programs they were doing virtual. That's what we've seen also in most cases. Did you find any challenges or maybe benefits being at the program for the interview? In other words, did you have some idea of what they were going to be asking you in terms of the interview and how that would go?
I mean, I know who is going to interview me. That was helpful, but I did not know what they were going to ask me and stuff. But originally, like being in touch with resident medical, I was prepared for the interview and to face how the questions are going to be. So that was very helpful, and the mock interviews really helped me too. So by the time the interview day was there, I wasn't nervous, and I was trying to avoid all the mistakes I was doing before that. So I wouldn't say I know any of the questions, but then I tried to be as prepared as I can on the day of interview. So
yeah, and before those interviews that you had or hadn't had, that guidance was very, very valuable. What to expect,
yes.
And what you're going to see in the interview, what the program directors or the attendings or the assistant program directors are going to ask you or what they're looking for. But in some ways, did you, just for those who are listening, did you know the people that you were interviewing? Had you been working with them? Had you met them all before?
Yeah, I did meet them before or like listened about them. I was actually supposed to start a research project with one of the attendings, and that's when I met one of them, and that's when I introduced myself, and I've been working as a research fellow, etc. And then that's the only time I met them. After that, I was in touch with through emails and stuff because I was doing the data analysis for the project. But other than that, not really. Yeah.
Now, you are going into a prelim in general surgery. And the research that you've been working on, will you probably continue some of that research into the following year?
Yes, exactly. I was always interested in research, and while I'm working here, we developed one prospective trail that will go on for a year at least. So that will be starting soon, and I'm very close with the program director too. So he wants me to start a project that will continue into my advanced year too. So we are still thinking on what to do, and we have an idea, but we did not finalize it yet. But we'll be starting on the protocol soon.
Very good. Well, Dr. Hartson, we wish you a wonderful academic year starting this July.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you're going to do wonderful. And I want to thank you for your input. And I believe we're going to introduce now Dr. Salabami. Is that correct? So, Harsha, thank you again. So we have Dr. Salabami is going to be joining us. Dr. Salabami is an interesting candidate who will be starting this July in residency, who was actually doing a one-year unaccredited PGY1 at a university-based, kind of community-based urban program on the East Coast. Welcome, Dr. Salabami. We have you, I think we have you muted. So, Dr. Salabami, if you could tell us a little bit about your experience for the audience, because I know it's a very interesting program where we actually have a number of candidates doing an unaccredited PGY1, where you literally are doing hands-on as a secondary residency group. And part of the value of that is you literally are doing a full one-year residency in a institutional residency program. It's a very large program for internal medicine. But you also end up taking the ITE, which the residents take, which is a very valuable document to give some indication of how your board passing proficiency will be. But Dr. Salabami, if you could tell us a little bit about your experience and a little about your background. Welcome to listen.
Okay. Good evening. I'm glad to have this opportunity to speak with everyone. My name is Shola Pomi. I'm actually from Nigeria. I graduated from a medical school back in Nigeria in 2012. I took the steps all by myself, and I had a couple of problems. I had a couple of attempts, and that actually affected me getting a residency program by myself. But I would say I was lucky to eventually meet resident medicals who actually helped me to channel a pathway into how to go about getting a residency program. They looked at my scores, looked at my year of graduation, and looked for programs which could suit me. And that was how I was able to come over to where I did my one-year unaccredited residency PGY1. And it actually has been it was actually a very, very good experience, because I literally worked with the resident for the whole 1 year. And I worked with several attendings, like every week, it's always a new attending. So everybody could evaluate me, not just the attending, even the residents themselves. And with the help of resident medicals, I was able to prepare very well for the IT exams, which actually was also an added advantage because I took it with other residents in the program.
So let me ask you, the IT that you took in at the end of September, did you find that the clinical experience helped you? Were you doing some additional study to prepare for it? Because I understand your IT was actually very good.
Yes, I would say that the clinical experience was an added advantage because I was literally seeing, it was more practical, seeing things than just reading things. So when you read it, it's just easier to understand, basically.
Yes, it's more straightforward, as you might say, too.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and I'll ask you the same question I asked Dr. Harshad. When you interviewed, you obviously knew the people that you were interviewing with because you had been there at that program. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say that literally almost everybody who I interviewed with, had worked with them 1 month, about 2 months ago, about 1 month ago. So even the resident who interviewed me, had worked with her for about 2 or 3 weeks. So it was like a walkover during the interview.
Right. And a number of the people that you work with, I think, also are matching in with you. So you have classmates that have shared your experience there, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So let me ask you, it's probably a very valuable, that 1 year unaccredited, even though it is unaccredited, to really prepare you for this coming year now when you start in July. It's correct. It's really would seem like to give more confidence. You know what you're going into. You're going to know your way around the hospital. You know the patients. You know the attendings. Your take on that?
Yes, I would agree that it's actually an added advantage. And yes, I feel like I'm already several steps ahead. But all the same, there's still nothing like when you're starting, you still want to know that you still want to give it your best anyhow.
Right. So when orientation comes up in the end of June, you're a little bit ahead of some of the incoming residents that they're taking. I know it's a very large internal medicine program. And in fact, as you're probably well aware, the majority of IMGs each year match into internal medicine. You know, it's somewhere around 3,000 or 4,000 out of the 7,500 that matched in that go into internal medicine. And it is the patient demographic is urban, underserved in some ways. And are there certain diseases or health outcomes or health issues that you notice are pretty prevalent in this particular residency program?
Okay, I would say that it's actually the largest residency program here in the United States. So we have actually, it's a good opportunity to be at this program because we have the opportunity to rotate through 4 very big hospitals. So common things we see, like especially in the undeserved areas, we see a lot of alcohol withdrawal, we see a lot of substance abuse problems, poorly controlled diabetes, hypertension, myocardial infarction, several COPD exacerbation, asthma, and we also see it's a wide range of several medical conditions. So, and luckily we have state-of-the-art facilities where cardiac catheterization are done. We have the neurointensive ICU unit, so for stroke patients, hemorrhagic, ischemic stroke, all well managed with the TPA, everything. So I think it's a very good program.
No, it sounds really wonderful, and we're really happy to see that you're going into residency. Your challenge, obviously, with your scores in applying in the match was one of the reasons that you were having trouble even getting interviews. As you well know, the filters often will block. You've got attempts or something. Share with us a little bit about what you were trying to do before you got into this program.
Okay, all by myself, I tried research, I'd done some clinical observership, but that still wasn't good enough until resident medical helped me and dragged me to a proper program where the program director could have a direct contact with me, and several deciding faculty members could see my work, could appreciate my work ethics, and knew that genuinely I had a passion for medicine and that I was more than my challenges.
And that's really, thank you for that sharing, because that's probably one of our strong points, is that what we try and do is to take candidates who maybe in the match are getting blocked by the filters, not being considered. So many program directors have huge amounts of interview applicants. Many programs, especially on the East Coast, Northeast, I know some internal medicine programs, they get 6,000 to 7,000 applicants for 25 positions. And they do tell us, they say, you know, there are probably some wonderful candidates we can't even look at because we're going by scores, by our filters. And what could be a classic example of that. Here you have somebody who they say, hey, look, we want you to spend some time with Dr. Salabami. You tell us if she doesn't have a passion for medicine and also couldn't be a great resident. And you're kind of a living proof of that exactly.
Yes.
One last question that I was going to ask you too. Would you recommend if somebody has the same challenges to maybe look us up? Because, you know, the opportunities that you have had and some of the other classmates that you have currently in this particular very large urban residency program, it's 4 hospitals you rotate through. There's probably many other people that you see or have heard who've had difficulty kind of matching in, whether they're international IMGs or domestic IMGs.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't get that question.
I was just going to say, would you recommend also us being able to help some other IMGs?
Absolutely, yes. I would, because I would say that resident medicals, they understand the intricacies of the residency programs. They understand different types of residency programs that suit different candidates. And I would, anytime, any day, I'll recommend them because they will just put you where they feel you will belong and where they feel that they'll be able to appreciate you better.
Yes, no, absolutely. And I don't mean to just kind of pitch us here, but that is partly what we are interested in doing. We like to recommend physicians who really will make good residents. And the scores and the YOG, year of graduation, are not the telltale of anything. They are sometimes the challenges that the students have to get over. And there are ways to get over. Let it be clear, we want to create opportunities and training to make great residents. We don't want residents that are going to be in programs that are not going to be great. And I'm sure you're going to do wonderful, Dr. Salabami, as an accredited resident starting this July. And as I've said, you've done it 1 year already in that same program, so you are very well trained. That's partly why the program really likes this program as well. They see here's a training ground for residents that we could bring in, and if they do well, my goodness, we know exactly what they'll do as a PGY1. So there's no mystery to how wonderful you will be.
Thank you so much.
All right, well, I want to thank you again. I think we're going to move to some questions from the audience that are listening in on this webinar. And I don't know, does Dr. Salabami want to stay on here to help with the answer to some of those? So Dr. Salabami, you stay here with me and let's kind of look through at some of these questions that we have. I've got a few here already that we've got, but if you've got some from the audience too, I'm happy to read some of those, and Dr. Salabami and I can kind of look at them.
Okay.
Pardon? Oh, and Harshad, Dr. Sanapati, we have you on as well, so you can participate. So we've got both of you. Go ahead. Let's look at if we got some questions here that have been sent in to us.
Yeah. Okay, this is Sheila Awala, Senior Residency Specialist here at Residency Medical. So we have some questions from the audience, and as you're listening to these questions, you can add in more, so we'll get to them as we go through, but there are a lot of them. But I'll start off with this first question, which is, will you be discussing the post-match opportunities for the family medicine program in California?
There are post-match opportunities in not only in California, but in other states. We are pretty strong about helping residents post-match and post-SOAP. We really put people in literally all year round. There are programs that we are affiliated with that will come to us, and we may recommend candidates or prepare them for residency. But we have pre-match programs where they're looking for candidates before the match, often in October, November, that are not in the NRMP match. And then there are post-match programs. We have some programs right now that are applying for additional positions that we're helping them with. So those opportunities, but it is quite extensive. Great. Second question, go ahead.
So the next question is, where can I find a list of unaccredited PGY1 programs?
That is a good question. We're one of the few organizations that created the unaccredited PGY1. So we'll see somewhere around a few others. I've come across, they used to have one in New York. It was an unaccredited surgery, general surgery, but it no longer continues. But we're one of the pioneers for doing unaccredited PGY1, especially for internal medicine and sometimes for family medicine. So if you're looking, feel free to look us up, because we think they're a wonderful pre-residency opportunity. And we had a number of candidates who have matched in to residency through that pathway. It's very effective.
So our next question is, what is your opinion about telerotations?
That's a very good question. Telerotations have kind of materialized here because of COVID. But there is still a debate of whether or not telerotations take the place of actually hands-on. But let me ask Dr. Salabami, what do you think of telerotations? I mean, do you think you've done an unaccredited, you're up close and personal to the program. Do you think telerotations have a value, or do you think that it's a temporary situation for the current COVID situation?
I would say that there's still nothing like the in-person rotation, because with the in-person rotation, you'll be able to build a proper relationship with the people working in the hospital and with the decision makers. And I think that's the most important thing, having a proper relationship.
Yeah. Harshit, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think if you're trying to get into residency, I think the more contact you have with attendings and stuff, it's better than telerotations.
Right.
In-person rotations are much better.
Yeah, because some candidates are now using telerotations for their clinicals, but it still comes down to oftentimes having that connection to the program. And there's no replacement for being right on site when you're dealing with patients and the program directors, the attendings, the other faculty, and the other residents. So that's kind of our stance also with telerotations. We don't see them as really replacing the value of on-site rotations. Good question.
So our next question is, are there options for people on F1 visa? And I think Dr. Salamani can answer this as far as how we were assisting him with visa.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I just graduated with an F1 visa and in biostatistics, so I was able to continue on my OPT because it's STEM program. And while I was working as a research fellow in the new program, they just applied as they applied as I'm going to be a statistical analyst for the program while doing other clinical work. So I did not have any visa problems really. I just continued my first year of OPT. And yeah.
Good. Next question.
Sure. So the next question, are there any leads for US DOs for preliminary positions? I'm going for anesthesiology.
Yeah, we deal with several anesthesiology programs, and we help DOs in those programs. In fact, we know several AOA DOs anesthesiology programs that are sometimes looking or maybe expanding for new positions. And if you're interested, I would recommend contacting one of our counselors about that, because what we're noticing, and I'll just say as an aside, is ACGME has united both AOA and LCME, both the MDs and the DOs, under the same residencies. But there are still programs out there that are, if they're AOA accredited originally, they still tend to be directed to finding residents who are DOs. And we also find MD schools and MD residencies that are very competitive that only interview MDs and not DOs. So this will probably, with time, become more integrated. But if you are interested, if you are a DO, do contact us, because we are affiliated with both. And we deal with program directors that are both DO and MD. And there are certain
Are you able to hear us?
Okay, yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, we had a small technical difficulty. I apologize for that. So the question I was trying to read to Dr. Salabami was, what should I do to make up for my failed first attempt on CS? I am an IMG.
I mean, CS doesn't even exist now. I don't know how big of an issue CS is. I've been in contact with people who had attempts on CS and still matched. So I would say, like, get in touch with as many program directors as you can, attendings as you can, and I would say just make as many contacts as possible and develop skills that will complement your CS loss. I mean CS attempt. So I would just try to get research skills, get as many publications as possible, and build up something that will separate you from other residents. That would be my advice, and that is basically what I tried to develop while trying to get into residency.
Very good. Next question.
Sure, I think we have time just to take a couple more.
I have a question here. You want me to, somebody sent in, if you got 3 interviews, was that enough to rank if you didn't rank? Oftentimes, you'll hear people say you need 5 to 10 interviews to actually match in. But I will tell you this, from our perspective of residence medical, we're much more about quality, not quantity of interviews. And literally 1 or 2 good interviews in programs where you can be known and have proved yourself are much more effective for matching in. And I think both these candidates are kind of a testimony of that. I think Dr. Salabami, your interview, one of your main interviews was with the program where you matched in, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, and it was, and again, it was like a pre-residency training program where you're, instead of going into the NRMP, where you're challenged anyhow by the filters. We have many people that come to us and we tell them, please, I don't think it's a value for you to be going into the NRMP and becoming one of those 3,000 or 4,000 that get no rank list because you're being blocked. And all those 3,000 to 3,500 who didn't get a rank list spent a lot of money, applying to programs. So rather than, ineffectively use your funds to apply, and by the way, this year, 20 to 30% of the US grads over applied because nobody was going to hotels, nobody was flying around for interviews. So you had all that mess going on. So, but the specific interview is often the most effective. And certainly, Dr. Salabami, you're also a living proof of that as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. So I have one more question for Dr. Salabami. The question is, how did you overcome your attempts?
I would say that after being in the program was actually a very good opportunity, but it's not just being in the program. because there still has to be a personal effort in you. That you have to show them that genuinely you want this thing. And how will you prove you want it? Punctuality, doing your tasks properly, and being on top of it. If they ask you to give a presentation, go above and beyond, get ready for the presentation. If they ask you, we want you to examine this patient, do it properly. So you're showing them that, yes, I have some issues, but I am still a very good candidate that can actually fit into your program. So any little opportunity you have, always, I'm not saying you should overdo things, but still present yourself as a good candidate, basically.
Thank you. So the last question I'm going to take, Professor, I think you can answer this. The post-match spots that you posted online that are still open to fill to start this July, how do we get information for that? How do we sign up with Residence Medical to get this information to be able to get in to start this year?
Good question. One of the things that I would recommend is you contact our counselors here, because they're very much aware of these post-match residency opportunities. And we have a number of them, quite honestly, between now and July, and sometimes even into the summer. So we are actually helping students interview, prepare, and be recommended into a number of ACGME positions. And we want them good. Many of these programs are not in the match. Many of these programs are recently accredited, and some of them are looking for really good residents who are willing to start on the ground running. So what that means is they need to be prepared. We have, for example, even some students are going to go into, let's say, general surgery prelims. And we don't just put them in. We usually will send them for pre-residency training in general surgery simulation, because we want them to go into that particular specialty knowing what they're doing, and they need to be well prepared. And the program directors appreciate that. At the end of the day, all programs want their residents well prepared. So whether it's in match or out of match, the whole idea is that these are good physicians who are well trained to learn and to be learners and to really excel. So whether you're Dr. Salabami, who has just been through 1 year of training so that she is well prepared, or Dr. Harsha, who has also been doing research and part of 2 different specialty training programs, that he is also being prepared to go into clinically. That's important. Sometimes we even ask ourselves, look, if I was in that hospital, would I want this person as my resident? The answer is absolutely yes. I would love to have a resident there who's had 1 year of training, okay? Or somebody who has extensive research and has proven themselves with the program. I think that's wonderful. And, you know, if you ask the average patient, you know, in a hospital and say, are you concerned about the scores on this particular resident? They won't have a clue. What they do want to know is this a well-trained doctor? Is this a doctor who really cares about their patients? And that's really the key to the whole picture. We want candidates to come to us, and we encourage you to call us, you know, get in touch with us, and we want to help you become a great resident in a really good program. And these 2 particular physicians we know are going to do wonderful. We will stay in touch with you after July. So we look forward to doing that. And we really look forward to you both having a wonderful academic year starting this year in 2021. It's been a very challenging year because of COVID, as we well know. Dr. Salabami, you know it very well, and so do you, Dr. Harshad, in the programs you've been at, in those challenges particularly. So thank you, God bless. Please feel free to contact us. Thank you for listening to us this evening, and we look forward to helping you into residency in whatever way we can.
Thank you. Bye.